Hey everyone, welcome back to another Finaissured demo for a AI-based accounting agent. If you've been watching our other videos, you know that we've been creating workflows around the Finaissured AI bot, which will allow you to perform and automate accounting tasks. Right now, we're in the middle of our banking automation series, particularly centered around Zoho Books as the accounting package. You'll be able to access these workflows in Finaid as an agent, as a multi-step agent that you'll be able to hire for your various processes. And so we're excited to show you this and we're excited to release this to you. So, in my previous video, I had created, I'd given you an example of our model predicting a transaction from Zoho and categorizing it and creating a new vendor because that vendor wasn't there. The vendor that it predicted for, it wasn't there. So it created a new vendor and categorized it as an expense. So in this video, we're going to be doing a variation on that, a more complex version of that. Here, what we're going to be doing is the same thing. We're going to be predicting a transaction and however, the vendor this time already exists. So the system should check to make sure that there is a vendor. When it goes to create a new vendor, it's going to realize that the vendor is already there. And then it's going to check if there's any outstanding bills, which there is. I'm going to show you. I've created one. And then it's not only going to categorize the transaction as an expense with the vendor that exists, but we're going to use the Zoho APIs in our console to actually pay the bill for the amount that we just categorized for. So it's going to be a multi-step, almost 4 steps here. Predict the transaction, check if the vendor exists. It does exist. Check if there's bills. If there is a bill, categorize the transaction as an expense with this vendor, pay the bill. So that's what we're going to go through. We're actually doing it for the Air India transaction, which you can see under uncategorized transactions here, Air India for $8.28. So it's uncategorized. We're going to categorize that. However, before we do that, let's check the two assumptions we made, which is I've already left and created from our last video the Air India vendor. So the Air India vendor is already created, doesn't need to create it anymore. But not only that, I've created a bill for $20, which is a surplus in excess of the $8.28. So if this works properly, it's going to realize that there's an open bill, a status open bill, and it's going to pay $8.28 of that. So first, let's go to our model here. Let's start from the beginning. Let's run it. Let's make sure that we have the Air India transaction details from Zoho, which we do, which is exactly what I showed you, 828 uncategorized transaction with Air India. Let us run the model and get the prediction. Okay, boom, travel expense, Air India. We've actually already gone through this. Let's let the model call the Zoho API to make sure that the transaction is that no new vendor is being created and that it categorized the transaction properly. So if we go back to here, now go back to banking, which has actually happened, we could go to categorize transactions and boom, just like we had discussed last time, it has categorized it with the vendor, but this time it didn't have to create the vendor. The vendor is already there. Now let's see if it's performed the last step, which is, did it pay the bill? We did call the API in my local machine here to pay that bill. So if we go to here and click purchases, bills, and boom, that is correct. Partially paid. If we open this up, we can see that it's been paid partially, which is $8.28. $20 minus $8.28, 11.72 is remaining. And so that is an example of where the system could have these multiple steps. We called Zoho APIs 3 times in that workflow. First, it predicted this transaction, understood it's a travel expense, understood that the vendor is Air India, checked, categorized it, which we had already done in our previous example, but categorized it, checked that there was a bill, paid the amount towards the bill. So that kind of gives you an example of what the power of these agents could be with Finaid. See, we're using the model is only one part of this. The remainder of this is logic that so many accountants are working on a daily basis. So we're super excited. We're gonna have so many agents like this, and we're so excited to share this with you in the upcoming weeks.